With Genshin Impact's 2.2 update going live a couple days ago, a lot of people are puzzled on which 5-star to wish for, if either. 2.2 features both a Tartaglia rerun and a Hu Tao rerun, with the new 4-star Toma being on the Hu Tao banner. Disclaimer before the video, by no means is this a guide video or an in-depth overview of either character, so please take everything I say with a grain of salt. If you are interested in learning more about optimizations, I would recommend checking out channels like ZYOX or XSlice. I will only be voicing my personal opinion on both units and tell you what I will be personally doing in 2.2. Also, I will not be including the 4-star units on the banners as we don't know which ones are going to be on the Hu Tao banner, so I can't really base any judgments on those 4 stars other than Toma, which seems cool, but again, I'm not going to base it off that. So without further ado, I hope you enjoyed the video. Let's start with Tartaglia. I think it's fair to say that no one was expecting another rerun of this unit, but alas, here we are. If you didn't already know, Tartaglia is a Hydro bow user whose playstyle revolves around his elemental skill, Foul Legacy, Raging Tide. Although you can use Tartaglia at a distance with his bow, which gives him some extra gameplay styles, his damage and general enjoyment usually strays away from his auto attacks. Foul Legacy Raging Tide allows Tartaglia to enter a melee stance with dual Hydro daggers. His fast and swift attacks give him a sense of satisfaction when playing and a lot of flashy visuals. He excels at quick burst damage with great AoE when paired with Riptide, an AoE Hydro effect that is applied when Tartaglia attacks enemies in certain ways. Speaking of quick burst damage, Tartaglia's elemental burst Havoc Obliteration is a flexible and high damaging burst that is quick and fun to use. He can activate 2 different types of this depending on whether he is using his bow or his dual daggers. When his burst is activated with the bow equipped, he will quickly fire a Hydro AoE arrow that deals moderate damage, applies Riptide to targets, and restores some of the energy used for his burst. However, when used with dual daggers equipped, he does a large AoE slash that deals massive Hydro damage and activates Riptide Blast, dealing more AoE damage to enemies affected by Riptide. He also has pretty good passives, including increasing Riptide's duration by 8 seconds, enabling dual dagger crit hits to apply Riptide, and increasing auto attacks of all party members by 1 level. It is worth mentioning that his elemental skill cooldowns depend on how long you stay in melee stance. If you are running the 4-piece Heart of Depth set, which is completely recommended by the way, his optimal rotations would be to take advantage of that 30% damage increase and leave melee stance after around 12 to 15 seconds, preferably going into a sub DPS. Some other things I would like to mention about Tartaglia is that he's very easy to get up and running. He has a lot of viable weapons, which means he's fairly free to play friendly. As long as you farm for a 4-piece Heart of Depth set with decent substats, you'll most likely already have a good Tartaglia at all stages of the game. Due to his flexibility, he can be played as a main DPS carry, burst DPS, or simply a fast Hydro applier for units like Xiangling. However, I do not want to turn this video into a guide, as I mentioned before, on the best way to play these units, so I'll just spare you the time. If you care more about lore, I'm happy to tell you that Tartaglia is a very cool character in Genshin Impact. Tartaglia, otherwise known as Child, is the 11th of the Fatui Harbingers, a mysterious group who works under the Tsaritsa and have been given absolute authority. These Harbingers carry a delusion, which are human-made visions basically, created by the Fatui in order to grant their carriers with exceptional power. Unfortunately, you cannot use this delusion with the playable version of Tartaglia, but it's pretty cool story-wise regardless. Tartaglia is a battle-driven, smooth talker who is always looking for a challenge, which just makes him 10 times cooler. I might be biased here since Tartaglia was one of my first 5 stars, but I would easily say that his playstyle and story puts him in my top 3 favorite characters in Genshin Impact. If you do not already have him, I would definitely recommend pulling for at least C0 as he is still very optimal with no constellations. Now for Wang Shen's Funeral Parlor's 77th Director, Hu Tao. Hu Tao is a Pyro Polearm user who excels at riskier playstyles with massive benefits. Her passive, Sanguine Rogue, I believe that's how you pronounce it, allows Hu Tao's pyro damage to increase by 33% when her health is under 50. This usually means that you wouldn't want universal healers, which are basically just healers that can heal off-field units like Jean, or simply stick to a shielder like Zhongli or Diona. Speaking of lowered HP, Hu Tao's skill, Guide to Afterlife, consumes a portion of her HP in exchange for entering the Paramita Papilio state. Again, I really hope I didn't butcher that because I'm going to have to say that quite a few times more. This state converts Hu Tao's max HP into attack, converts all her auto attacks into pyro-infused attacks, and gives her increased immunity to interruption. Hu Tao does have a status effect that she can inflict on enemies. While in the Paramita Papilio state, all attacks apply the Blood Blossom effect, which inflicts pyro damage every 4 seconds to enemies. The most infamous part of Hu Tao's kit, Spirit Soother, is an extremely high damaging elemental burst. She twirls around a blazing spirit and sweeps enemies in a large AoE. Moreover, if Hu Tao is below 50% health, the burst damage can scale over 100 additional percent in damage and around 4% more for HP regeneration upon activation. Additionally, another one of her passives gives a 12% increase to crit rate to all other party members after leaving the Paramita Papilio state, which is decently useful. Although Hu Tao is extremely fun to play, you won't be using her to her full potential if you do not constantly have her on field. By no means is this a negative thing, but it means that she shines as a main DPS carry and not really anything else. She certainly has been used as a burst DPS because of how much damage her elemental burst can do, but using her as anything other than a main DPS and you're just using half of her kit. Her increased damage with health management gives a new sense of mechanic to players unfamiliar with it, which makes her playstyle much more engaging. In terms of optimizations, I would heavily recommend looking into guides as I mentioned before. Hu Tao's ideal best in slots can depend on very niche things, I believe, specifically on what you have in your inventory, but in general she is very easy to build and don't feel intimidated with her mechanics. As the 77th director of the Wang Shen Funeral Parlor, Hu Tao, an otherwise quirky and hyper person, is capable of delivering a person's last rites and maintaining a balance between yin and yang. Her over-enthusiastic personality often leaves bad impressions on others, which is a pretty noticeable part of her character and development. Regardless, she takes her work very seriously and does not react well to disrespect towards herself or those she sees as friends. Regardless of how you feel about her, Hu Tao is undoubtedly one of the more engaging 5-star units in Genshin Impact. I would 100% recommend rolling for her under one condition. A key part of her excelling performance is when you get her to C1, which eliminates her charged attack stamina consumption in Paramita Papilio state. I don't believe this makes or breaks her as a good unit, but it is almost a night and day difference since her charge attack scales very high. Again, by no means is this a negative, and I'm not hating on the character whatsoever. I love Hu Tao. I myself will actually be pulling for C1 Hu Tao when she releases and would honestly encourage other people to do so if you are interested in a more intricate playstyle. Although this is the end of the video, I would like to point out that I did not base any of my opinions around comparisons of other units. With speculation of future rerun banners such as Albedo, Ganyu, and Zhao, and also newly announced units such as Ito and Goro, you need to make the decision on who you will pull for with your own playstyle involved. This video is simply made to give a very basic overview of both characters and entertain the ideas of what I will be doing during their respective banners. Take a look at which characters you think look the coolest, has the most entertaining playstyle for you, and just have fun. You can even base your decision on whether you have enough weapons and artifacts to build the unit. With Aloy entering the game for all players, maybe you don't have enough bows since you really want to use her instead of Tartaglia. Please understand that this game shouldn't be about how much damage you can put on the screen, rather it should just be about general enjoyment. Whether enjoyment comes from big numbers is up to you. I hope you enjoyed the video as much as I enjoyed making it. This is my first ever video, and I want to avoid any misinterpretations. I by no means am suggesting either character is bad or better than the other, and don't dislike either honestly. These were all just my opinions and would love to hear who you guys are pulling for in version 2.2, if any. Thanks for watching, and make sure you stay tuned for more future content. Ciao.